Ever wonder what it feels like to step into a parallel universe where Fallout and Bioshock had a quirky, colorful child? Welcome to the Outer Worlds, a game that promises to take you on a wild ride through a dystopian future. But is it worth your time, and why hasn't it made as big of a splash as its counterparts? Team on the line, let's find out. The Outer Worlds is a first-person RPG with both guns and melee combat, set in a far future where humanity has become a spacefaring species. The game has an intriguing retrofuturistic space opera vibe. I can't help but draw many similarities with Bioshock, especially Infinite. The character builder is initially overwhelming with its many stats, but it quickly makes sense as you play. More on that later. Fun fact, the guy who was supposed to meet me was, well, let's just say larger than life, so I went on solo.
Is that him? Oh, that idiot.
After the initial tutorial mechanic, you get to the ship and encounter law enforcers of the Spacer's Choice. This jingle is living rent-free in my head now. Here I tasted the branching dialogues with more choices than I expected, and also choices that vanish after some questions. So my advice is to really understand what you want to learn about and ask about that first. It's not like it's in Starfield, for example. You can't ask everything. Some dialogue options will just not be accessible after a certain point. They also have real weight to them. Most of the important situations can be resolved through dialogues in a pacifist way. I did this in my first encounter and felt good about that journey. During these moments, I noticed the game's saturation. Someone at Obsidian played with it a bit too much, the game feels a bit too colorful, which might have scared away some players. It gets better in other locations though. So I got to the broken ship, left without its captain, and it asked me for my name. A little Easter egg, try telling the ship that your name is Alex Hawthorne. I got a giggle out of that. Ada, the ship, tells you that she needs a power regulator to fly and points you to where you could get one. And just like that, I became the captain of the Unreliable. On the next stop, you get acquainted with the first city and location on your journey, the failing dirty city of Edgewater. For some reason, many games set in the far future feel a bit too dirty. Maybe that's the vibe they're going for, still, it feels like it's too much sometimes. Then you get some quests and start unfolding what is really going on in this dying city. You see the struggle of the people scraping by. I, being a good Samaritan, tried to help everyone. But the more I did that, the more I saw the cracks in the facade. The building was about to collapse. People who initially seemed friendly and welcoming have some really twisted backstories and reasonings. That's when the game slowly starts to shine. It hooked me and pulled me right into its world. The game is quite dystopian. Human colonies are on the brink of collapse, governed by a board of corporations with no regard for human life. One of the wildest stories was about a character who chose to end his life, and an entire city was about to pay fines for that, because, get this, he was corporate property. Talk about dystopian nightmares. The contrast between the extremely vivid world design and the grim reality of Halcyon is most definitely striking. The Outer Worlds is not strictly open world, it's a linear one with the ability to explore around as you go. The locations are quite diverse, from sprawling city of Byzantium to an abandoned Gorgon. This draws your attention to how the world is so far detached from reality,
Cough, as the parlance goes. I'm not doing anymore.
while using every last ounce of resource to maintain its lifestyle, even if it will bring the whole colony to certain destruction. Despite this, the humor in the game is spot on. I giggled a lot throughout my playthrough. And the game offers a lot of options to roleplay, from a standard savior type to a scientist to a really stupid guy. Choosing the latter led to some hilarious NPC interactions.
I'm Felix Millstone. I have prepared a list of reasons why I believe you should hire me to join the crew of your ship and/or outlaw gang. Firstly, I am highly personable, and I get along well with anyone who is not of the jackass persuasion.
Sorry. He's funny.
The variety of choices is more than enough for me personally. I think the game can provide a good experience even for a couple of playthroughs. The game itself is not that long. With both DLCs, it took me a bit under 30 hours. The packaging is great considering the amount of content there is. I didn't get bored on my playthrough, nor did it feel too repetitive. The only thing is running from location to location. You always have to go through your ship, which does add some random events happening, still a bit annoying. However, there are not as many loading screens as in Starfield, or so it feels like. The locations themselves are a bit more open to exploration and quite easy to navigate. I was almost never lost and found everything I needed quite easily. Also, I didn't encounter any serious bugs, if any at all. That's the surreal part. I mean, the gaming industry got so used to these types of games being buggy due to the king of the genre Bethesda that it seems like it can't be our reality. But it is, and that's the good news. I'll be honest, after experiencing the Outer Worlds, my expectation for Part 2 is high, and I will certainly play the game on release. The overall mix of this dystopian setting and dying worlds with a drive on hope to save everything is high with this one. And you have some choices on how to deal with all of that. Those choices are not really as simple as being good or bad, but rather are shades of grey. So choosing the lesser evil or the bigger one depends on how you want to play. I, for some reason, didn't expect it to have that many layers. I try not to research the games before I play them, to have the authentic experience of how the game treats newcomers, and this one exceeded in most areas. The story and branching choices are the champions of the title. Even finding some information while roaming can give you new options for dialogues and ways to resolve the issues. It's not a linear shooter I thought I was going to get, like Bioshock Infinite. Bioshock Infinite is absolutely stunning though, just different. I'm growing more and more certain that DLC content is where the devs do what they want, and in this game, like in many other titles, they change the vibe and the mission of the game quite a bit. Peril on Gorgon and Murder on Eridanos are more detective style, where you try to find out what happened at each one. It adds some freshness to the game and also has beautiful locations, like the flying city of Eridanos, which certainly took inspiration from Bioshock Infinite, and an abandoned Gorgon, which is a stunningly dark place to be, especially as you progress through the questline. The DLCs do their job by expanding the narrative and throwing you into more lore and specific stories that happened in Halcyon, making the player even more invested in this world. The soundtrack, though, didn't really catch my attention. While it does its job, only the jingles stood out to me. I'm not going to forget them easily, that's for sure. I remember mentioning the skill tree in the game. I think it's pretty complementary. What I liked about it, even though it feels a bit hard to understand at first glance, is that it's actually quite intuitive. Honestly, you can go with any direction you want to. It's going to be fine, and you can adjust easily as you go. In any case, you will just have some different options on the playthroughs and dialogues. This gives me grounds to assume that some situations could have been resolved in different ways, which should add to replayability. The quests are not really that exciting, often revolving around standard tasks like defeating enemies or fetching items. Most of the time you'll have the option to do them by going in guns blazing, with a stealth approach, or resolve through dialogue. Now that I think of it, it should be possible to complete the game in a pacifist way, except for animals and marauders. There are not that many quests at each planet or location, so you have at most about 5-6 side quests at one location, and every single one gives you more details and opens up the world more, telling more stories about Halcyon, its people and factions. It also has an impact on the world and has influence over various dialogues and story arcs later in the game. And I like that. This is what great games are made of. There is also a companion system in the game, and you can have two of them following you at the same time. Before all that, shout out to Parvati, her sweet voice was a delight. Just wanted to put it out there.
Yes! I mean, thanks. You won't regret this, mister. Captain. I can call you Captain now. Ha! I got a captain.
Otherwise, while the companions expand the gameplay a bit, giving you some more backstory on the world and their origin as well, as a side quest where you can help them, it's nothing to write home about. Their help in fights is okay, and the ability to give them orders is a bit more than you actually need. Most fights end in under a minute. The only thing I did was tell them to attack the stronger one of the pack, and that's about it. But they never are in your way. So when they stay at the door, you don't have to push through them, jump, or try to move them. They will get out of your way. It sounds so small, but it's so good. Now for the weapons and gunplay. Honestly, I didn't find it to be really satisfying. It gets the job done, but the variety of the weapons and the feeling of them left me longing for more. There are like 10 to 15 main weapon variations, and with you leveling up and going through the questline, you will just get the same weapon as you already have but Mark II or Mark III. That will only boost damage. It does that without any observable difference in the operation or looks. You can modify weapons, changing their damage type to plasma or electric, mounting a scope or a bigger magazine. You can also tinker with the weapon, making it deal more damage than it originally has, up to a certain level. But if it's Mark I or Mark II, the next level of that weapon that you will randomly find will be better still. Same thing applies to the armor. I changed it maybe 5 times at most, modifying it with things I wanted. Not as exciting as it could be, honestly. I tried melee combat a few times. Didn't like it. Too close, too much damage, too simple. There is also food and other items which you can use to get you some buffs for limited time, which I didn't use as much, or I just put it on the second slot and forgot about them. Time dilation is a form of a bullet time. I didn't give it much look at first, but after I unlocked some perks and could move really fast while using it, I was having more fun with it. It's great when you're losing or don't have enough health to continue fighting and need to find cover, or for disabling your enemies, blinding them for example. I also felt like I really wanted grenades. Some situations call for them, especially in close quarter fights. I never really felt the need for them, but here it's obvious. Overall, I think balancing the number of times you have to fight with ways to resolve issues through dialogues comes in shining here and saves the gunplay from being overused and making the game boring. I drew a lot of similarities with Fallout. Obsidian worked on Fallout New Vegas, so this is expected. The biggest differentiator between them is way stronger satire in the Outer Worlds and the far future it's set in. Otherwise, it's like a bug-free Fallout. Sorry, Todd. For some reason, I kept thinking of Bioshock Infinite on my playthrough. Essentially, I think it comes to the vibe of the world, where the officials say it's alright, nothing to worry about, while the world is crumbling down. The colors are also a factor, but Bioshock did it better. And the flying city in the DLC is definitely a nod to Infinite. But it's not as popular as those titles. I think it might be attributed to the fact that it's a comparatively small game with about 30 hours of gameplay, including the DLCs. And it also lacks the strong name recognition as those two. It seems like this one of the reasons why I always postponed playing it for so long. In the end, the game deserves more attention than it got. I think The Outer Worlds is definitely worth a try, at least for its great story and satire. With the planned release of The Outer Worlds 2, I can definitely say I'm hyped. Thank you for watching. Want to learn about another RPG that some consider to be the best out there? Check out my video on Ghost of Tsushima. Bye!